everybody, my name is Kim Hargrave and I'm the Education Director here at the Denison Pequotsepos Nature Center. And I'm really excited today to be talking to you about Willow the Screech Owl. Willow is one of the newest owls to come to live at the Nature Center, and she's actually only 1 year old. Unfortunately, when Willow was just a little fledgling, she was hit by a car and it caused an eye injury. And a wonderful organization called A Place Called Hope had her, and they deemed her to not be releasable, and she was brought to live with us to become one of our education birds here. So Willow is an Eastern Screech Owl. Here in the United States, we have Eastern Screech Owls and we have Western Screech Owls. Eastern Screech Owls go from the Atlantic Ocean out to about the Great Plains. And then on the western part of the country, out in California, in that area, we have the Western Screech Owl. So Eastern Screech Owls can live just about anywhere where there's lots of trees. That's why they can't live in the Great Plains. No trees there for them. Now, Screech Owls actually come in a couple different colors. They could be this brown or gray color phase, or they can have a reddish color phase. About 1/3 of Screech Owls have the redder color, and it tends to be slightly more common along the East Coast. As you move inland towards the Mississippi River, they tend to be more of this gray color right here. So Willow, like I said, is only 1 year old. When we first got her, she still had some of her downy feathers, but she has lost all of those and is full grown right now. So this is as big as an Eastern Screech Owl gets. She weighs just under 1/2 pound right here. And even though she's a small owl, she has all the same characteristics as those bigger owls that we often think of, like great horned owls and barred owls. She is a bird of prey, so she's related to hawks, eagles, vultures, falcons. And the things that are most obvious about that are the talons that she has. She's got 4 toes on each feet with 4 very sharp talons that she uses to hunt her food. When Screech Owls hunt, they often perch in a tree and look for prey coming by them. So it's not so often that they're flying around looking for prey. Some birds look for prey as they fly. Screech Owls tend to be more the type that sits and looks and looks and looks until something swoops by that they can catch. It could either be something on the ground, like a small mammal, a mouse or a vole, or it can be something flying. Occasionally they'll catch birds and bats. These guys also like to eat what we consider soft body items, things like worms and other invertebrates they might go for. They'll eat salamanders, they'll even eat frogs on occasion. So if they see a little tree frog, that could be a great snack for our Screech Owl right here.
Now, Kim, it looks like our comments are not coming in. So everyone, if you have questions, again, feel free to comment and we will answer you back later. But I know a frequent question that we get asked is, what do we feed our owls here at the Nature Center?
So since in the wild they eat a variety of things, but the most common thing for owls to eat in the wild are small mammals. And so that's what we feed her. So she gets mice, and we give her mice called fuzzies. And so they're smaller mice, so it just makes it easier for them to eat. Not that she couldn't eat a larger mouse, but she gets fuzzy mice, and she gets several mice each day. We have 2 Screech Owls here at the Nature Center, and we put out about 10 of these little mice for them every single day.
Well, that's kind of a lot based on her size.
Based on her size, yep. So she has a really good diet. One thing that Screech Owls do out in the wild, and every now and then they'll even do it in captivity, is if they have an opportunity to have extra food, they will take advantage of that, and then they do something called caching. And so they store some of that extra food just in case it's harder to find food tomorrow, kind of like having our pantries full. So Screech Owls will do that. Now, once she has some prey, that she's caught with those talons, she uses her curved or hooked beak, which is tricky to see on a Screech Owl. We'll see if we can get in there a little bit. All right, and she gets in there, and she can use that hooked beak right there to tear the prey into smaller chunks, and then she swallows those smaller chunks whole. Now, Screech Owls and all owls, when they eat their food, they don't necessarily take it all off the bones. So she might end up with a lot of bones from whatever she's eating. So let's say she's eating a mouse. She's going to end up, with the skull from the mouse if she eats the head off, or some leg bones, rib bones, all those types of things. they go down into her stomach area, and from there, all the soft tissue things, so, you know, the heart and the muscles, that all gets digested. But anything that's like feathers or bone can't be digested. So that goes back up into a special part of her stomach called the proventriculus. And then about 24 hours or so after she's eaten, she'll actually cough up an owl pellet. And that owl pellet is made out of the bones and the fur of whatever she has eaten. And so that can be a really fun thing to do. You can find owl pellets outside, and you can look and see what is in them, and you can know what your screech owls have been eating. Now, one tricky thing about screech owl pellets is because they eat a lot of soft-bodied items like worms, sometimes you don't get a 100% accurate picture of their diet, but it's still a pretty interesting thing to do.
And if people are interested about owl pellets, they can check back under our videos or also on our YouTube channel, because we did an owl pellet dissection. And for that, we typically use owl pellets that are from barn owls.
Yes, we usually use barn owl pellets, and I usually do ones that I have purchased because they've been sterilized. Unfortunately, the ones that you find out in the wild, if you ever try to take one apart, I would highly recommend wearing gloves and then washing your hands afterwards and using hand sanitizer, just because they have been through an owl's stomach, and so there can be, you know, some pathogens in there that you might not want to get. All right, so where do you look for screech owls? Screech owls are actually really hard to find in the wild, even though they're a very numerous owl. They're one of our most common owl species. The reason why they're so hard to find is they have amazing camouflage. So if we take a look, she's happy to show off her back today. So if you take a look at those feathers and that pattern, that's going to blend right into a tree trunk. The other thing is they are cavity nesters, and especially on cooler days, they're even cavity roosters, which means they go into a hole in a tree. That's where they have their nest, and a lot of times they'll roost there. Now on warmer days, like today when I was out, I noticed how hot and humid it was, they actually will nest on branches, but still with this camouflage, when they're absolutely still, when they're 15 feet up, you're not going to notice them unless you're really, really looking for screech owls. Screech owls, like I said, can be anywhere that there are trees. So they can be in suburban areas, they can even be in city parks, and then they can also be out in the woods. What ornithologists are discovering about these owls is they actually have a better success rate and survival rate in suburban and urban areas. That's because there's still have plenty of mice for them to eat, but there's less predators for them. So there's fewer larger owls that sometimes do eat our small screech owl.
And I know that will be a question. So because these are much smaller owls, it seems like they would maybe make a snack for some other things. What might prey on these cute little owls?
So unfortunately for these guys, great horned owls love to prey on little screech owls. And so it's mostly larger owls that prey on them, and it occasionally can be another nocturnal animal that would go into a tree and maybe find them in a tree cavity. So possibly, a raccoon could get in there and get, young owlets, or, maybe a fisher, things like that, that might be able to take advantage of the bird while it's sleeping or resting. These owls tend to get up very late at night. Obviously any bird or any animal occasionally changes their routine, just like us, but as a general rule, these guys don't tend to be active until after midnight. So
you did have to wake Willow up this morning, and she's still blinking a little bit.
But yeah, she was...
You can tell that there's a reason that they say night owl.
Yeah, and so she was sleeping when I went to visit her this morning. And at the Nature Center, we have a really lovely flight enclosure for our owls, but sometimes you don't actually get to see the screech owls, even though they're in there, because they're in their nesting boxes. And so that's what she was doing today. She was sleeping in one of our nesting boxes that looked just like this, and they also roost in these boxes right here. These boxes can be a wonderful way to actually attract screech owls to your house. This is, a sized hole that she can easily get into, and they will nest in there, and then again they will roost in there during the day. You can find plans for these online.
And we had a wonderful volunteer make some of these for us,
Yeah,
correct?
so this was made by AJ Hawking. He made this one for us, which was absolutely fabulous. And the big catch with them is you do want to be able to clean them out on occasion. Now, screech owls, because they don't build their own nests, they're dependent on woodpecker holes and holes that have been enlarged by animals like squirrels, things like that. They won't even carry their own sticks into the nest. So they're really dependent on a little bit of the sawdust left over from woodpeckers and things like that. So, but they have no problems getting into these. So you might think that looks like a kind of a small hole for a little screech owl. Absolutely no problem. Most of her is just fluff. She's actually so tiny underneath. She weighs less than a ½ pound, about 6 ounces is the average screech owl size. Now, a few other things I just want you to know about her. You see those things sticking up right here, and you might think those are her ears, but actually those are just feather tufts. So those feather tufts can be up, they can curl down, and it kind of depends on her mood. When she's a little more alert, they tend to be up, so she's finally waking up and got her ear tufts up for us today. Her actually ears are located on the edge of her facial disc. So if you look at the side, we're actually getting a pretty good side view of her right now. You can see that brown line on the side there, and her ears are located right underneath those feathers, and they're just ear openings. Owls have amazing sense of hearing. They can actually find their prey just by using their hearing. So if it's really, really dark outside, they will depend on that sense. They also have incredible eyesight, and they also depend on that for hunting, and which is why with diminished eyesight or no sight in one eye, owls sometimes can't make it back out in the wild. So owls have huge eyes. So if I had eyes the size of an owl, this is what I would look like. So this actually takes up a lot of room in their skulls. And this is not from a screech owl. This is from a barred owl right here. But if you look, you can see how big those eye sockets are and how deep they are. Because of the size of their eye, they actually have an extra ring of bone to hold their eyes in place. So this is a really important thing to know about owls. Owls can't move their eyes inside of their eye sockets. Instead, they actually have to turn their heads all the way around. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. All right. Yeah, I know
You're getting very talented.
All right. So if you look right here, this is a snowy owl puppet. I'm not sure if Willow knows what to think of it, but this is what an owl can do. They can turn their head, they can turn it, they can turn it, they can turn it, they can go 270 degrees around, and then they have to go back.
But not 360 degrees.
They cannot go 360, and they can't spin their heads around like this. All right? And if Willow wanted to, she could do that as well. She's really just kind of being mellow today and just hanging out right
now,
here.
Kim, the things that they have in their necks, or, their vertebra, so they have much more vertebra, and is it double what humans have?
Yes, they have twice as many vertebrae in their neck as you and I do, which helps them to turn their head all the way around. But still, they have some limitations, just like you and I do. If you think, our spinal cord is running through that vertebrae, it's connecting to our brain. And if we twist too far, we can actually sever part of that spinal cord and some of the arteries and veins that are bringing blood up to our brain and back down. So screech owls and all owls actually have some built-in things to help with that. So they have extra room so that they don't hurt their spinal cord as they spin their head. And they store a reserved area of blood in their neck, so when their neck is turned and more blood can't be coming up to their brain, they have that reserve that keeps things functioning. So they can't keep their neck twisted forever. They do have to turn it back forward to keep things going.
That's a pretty cool adaptation.
All right, now take a look at her eyes. We'll see if she'll blink for us continuously. Now she's got her eyelids coming down from the top, but every now and then, especially on this right-hand one, you can see what we call her nictitating membrane.
Right. Oh, look at those eyes.
All right, so that nictitating membrane is a clear eyelid that she's not going to put down. There it goes, right there. And that actually helps to clean her eye and keeps her eye protected while she is out hunting.
And so for anyone tuning in late, can you just give a recap about Willow and why she became an animal ambassador here at the Nature Center?
Okay, so we've had Willow for less than a year. She was hit by a car and she has an eye injury. And that eye injury would prevent her from being an effective hunter out in the wild. She did come to us from another wonderful rehabilitation organization called A Place Called Hope here in Connecticut. And she has lived with us. We do know she's only 1 year old, which is actually fairly unusual for us to actually know the age of our birds, because a lot of times they come in and it's tricky to say if they're 1 year old, 3 years old. You know, most of the time they tend to be younger birds. But you know, accidents can happen at any age. But because when she was injured, she was still a fledgling. She still had her downy feathers. And so we knew that she was under a year last year when she was injured. And when she molted towards the end of the summer, she got all of her adult plumage. So keep in mind, this is an adult screech owl right here. This is as big as they get. Now, like I said before, it's hard to see screech owls, but sometimes you might hear them. You know, you wake up in the middle of the night and you hear a funny sound. So I actually want to play the call of a screech owl for you so that you can just be on the listen for these guys. I think they sound a little bit like a horse. They have that whinnying trill, and that is what they're famous for.
And that is not to be confused with the cooing in the background. And Kim, who is cooing?
So Rosie, our pigeon is...
Who's next to a mourning dove?
Who's hanging out next to our mourning dove, is cooing today. She's a little unhappy with us because we haven't let her out. Just because, even though she's bigger than our screech owl right here, you know, screech owls might try to prey on a bird, and Rosie's wonderful, but she would not recognize
right. She doesn't.
As a threat.
Again, one of the reasons that Rosie lives with us is that she's imprinted on humans, and also has proven that she does not have a fear of things that could eat her. She has a tendency, as you've seen probably from some of our programs, of like when she landed on the Fisher cat mount.
Yeah. So it's just kind of one of those things. So she needs to stay in her cage today, but she is letting us know that she is unhappy.
She was out for some flying earlier and will be out again soon.
Yes, she will. All right, a couple other things I just want to tell you quickly about screech owls. One is, if we can zoom in right around her beak, she's got some specialized feathers right there. They're long, they look like little hairs, and those help her with her sense of touch, or sense of feeling. When you're catching something small and it's right in front of your face, it can be hard to figure out what's going on, and so those help her, just like a cat's whiskers help them. So that's a pretty neat feature about her. One other thing that I wanted to mention is just her flight. She is silent when she flies. So when Rosie flies around the room, the pigeon makes all sorts of noise. You always know. But when an owl flies around, it is silent. So they have silent flight. And that is because of the edge of their feathers right here. You can see those little hairs that stick out from the edge of the feather. And that helps to minimize the noise that the owl makes as it's flying. The other thing about owl feathers is they're incredibly soft. You might be thinking all feathers are soft, but when you touch an owl feather, it is so much softer. So this actually came from a barred owl right here. Obviously, it'd be too big for a screech owl.
I think it's taller than she is.
Yeah. So there's a lot of amazing things about screech owls, so pay attention. If you get one in your neighborhood, they do tend to stick around for a while. The male and female tend to mate for life until one of them passes away, and then they'll take another mate. They usually are nesting through the month of April, so most of our screech owls will have young screech owls at this time of year. It takes about 30 days for the eggs to hatch, and another 30 days for the babies to fledge. And so sometime usually in the month of June is when we start to see branching, or little fledgling screech owls going out onto tree branches, starting to figure out how to fly. So, you know, mid-June or so, we might start to see some of those out in the wild.
All right. So Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in today. Again, our comment feature is not working on the screen right now. So if you have questions and we didn't answer them during the program, don't worry, we'll happily respond to you after. So feel free to write in your questions. Also, it's always fun to see where you're tuning in from. So if you want to drop us a message and let us know where you tuned in from today, we'd greatly appreciate that as well. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. We will come back to you live next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10 a.m. and look forward to seeing you then. Until then, everyone enjoy being nature-centered, and we will see you next week.